You've got an agent, now what? So this video is all about navigating the author-agent relationship. I think this is important not just for people that have agents that recently signed with literary agents, but also for people going into that who are wanting an agent to kind of have an idea about how that relationship might work for you, how to ask for things you want, how to kind of tell if the relationship is working for you or isn't working for you, that sort of thing. I've been with my agent, Christy Hunter, at the Knight Agency for 2 years. I've had a very positive experience with her. I also have friends who have had not so positive experiences with agents. And so I feel like I kind of have a good idea of the things that can come up in that relationship, things that you should pay attention to, things that are important for you as an author to advocate for yourself and to make clear to your agent. And so that's what this video is all about. I've organized these into steps because these are kind of the steps that you'll go through when you get an agent and the sort of things that you will be doing pretty much in this order to my knowledge, but it might be a little bit different depending on your relationship. But this is kind of the general, what is that word that I'm looking for? Progression. So step one is editing your book for submission. So when you sign with an agent, they are choosing to represent your novel and to submit it to publishing houses for you. And so that means that you will likely go through some amount of editing. Not all agents are editorial, meaning that not all agents will be super in depth with their edits. You might not go through multiple rounds of edits. They might be lighter edits, they might be heavier edits, depending on the sort of agent that you've signed with, but you probably will go through some level of at least small edits. And so that's step one, editing your book for submission. For this stage, I would say it's really important, and quite honestly, it's important for the whole author-agent relationship. Make sure that you are on the same page with your agent. So when you are editing your book in this first stage, if your agent says, for example, how long do you think it's going to take you to edit this? Or can you turn this around in a month? Be very upfront and honest about this. If you know it takes you a longer time to edit, then say so. The last thing you want to do is to force yourself into a smaller timeline. For one, you're probably not going to do your best work. You're going to be really stressed out and it's going to be upsetting for you. And it's better to be upfront with your agent about that, because even though you go into this relationship, you and your author aren't bosom buddies yet. Your agent actually doesn't know that much about you. They have your book, and they would have chatted with you on the call, but they don't know you yet. They don't know how long it takes you to edit. They don't know how you deal with deadlines or timelines. And so it's really important to be upfront about that so that you can be on the same page at every single stage and your agent can know how you work up front, because this is supposed to be a working relationship. It is not a dictatorship. I think it's very common for us as writers to put agents up on a pedestal and be like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to ask them anything, or I'm afraid to disappoint them, or do things like that. I think those are really natural feelings, but at the end of the day, you do need to be very straightforward and communicative about those aspects, because you want to set an appropriate working relationship that works for both of you, not just one or the other. And on that note of communicating, stand your ground on your edits when you need to. So if there's an edit that your agent suggests and you really disagree with it, tell them you disagree with it and tell them the reasons why. I would be very shocked, I'd be hard pressed if your agent forced you to do an edit, because that's not really what the relationship is supposed to be. They're making suggestions for edits based on their expertise. And so sometimes you might have that little irk in the back of your head where you're like, but why? Because you don't want to kill your darling. But know the difference between killing your darlings and between making a change that you feel is fundamentally incorrect for your story and for the path of your story, and be very upfront about that in edits. Step 2, going on sub. So now you've edited your book and you are about to go on submission with your agent for the very first time. So something really important for your relationship at this period is to ask all of the questions. Ask any questions that you have about submission. Ask as many as you need to up front. Please don't be afraid to ask your agent. I know, because I was like this, where I was like, I don't want to bother her. Not because Christy made it clear that she didn't want to be bothered. In fact, my agent at every stage was like, ask questions if you have questions. But again, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think it's natural to feel a little bit like, because we put agents on such a high pedestal, but go ahead and ask all your questions about submission so that you can be informed. Also, make sure that you and your agent, that you know what your agent's plan for submission is. So how many rounds are you going to go on to? What sort of editors are they sending to? Is it like big 5 editors? Is it smaller publishers? How many rounds do they expect to do? How many editors are they going to send to in each round? Some agents will send to a very large amount of editors in the first round and then a smaller amount as it goes forward. So asking them about that plan. Make sure that you get to see your pitch letter so that it represents essentially what your book is about. Another note on editors, some agents don't like to share editor names. That will depend on your agent's style. I believe that the justification I've heard in the past was so that clients wouldn't contact the editors or be weird. But honestly, I think your agent should trust you to not be like that. But anyway, some agents may not want you to see like the list of names, but they should be able to tell you how many people you're going out to in that round and what sort of deal are they pursuing. Are they pursuing, do you have a standalone book and they're still pursuing a 2-book deal? So to try and get, 2 books on the docket, are they pursuing a standalone deal? If you have a series, then you'll probably know, like mine was a 2-book series. So we were pursuing a 2-book deal, and making sure that you know that stuff up front so that you know exactly what is happening on submission. You don't want to be in the dark. There's so many things in submission that you're in the dark about from the editor side. You don't want to be in the dark from the agent side, because that's your direct relationship and they should be sharing that information with you. Also, at this time, make it clear how you want to be communicated with during submission. So in some cases, your agent will send you everything the editors say. So positive feedback and negative feedback. My agent suggested that for me, and I was very happy to get on board with that because I'm super nosy. But if you're the sort of person where for your mental health, you could not see the negative feedback, then in that case, I think that's something you should express to your agent and talk about, because at the end of the day, that's what's important and that's part of your relationship. And if you say, no, I don't want to see the negative feedback, then that's your choice. Some writers I know also set up a system with their agent where, for example, every week on Friday, their agent would send them an email with updates. And so they would know, I'm not going to get any news, good or bad, until Friday. So I don't have to worry about the rest of the week because it's only going to come on Friday, versus like when you have a more loose schedule and it's like you're waiting, I don't know, you're like on pins and needles all the time because you could get news at any time. So some people do that on like a weekly basis, or maybe like even like a bi-weekly basis, that sort of thing. It's up to you to set that up with your agent, but it is important to discuss that. Step 3, working together on new projects. So once you and your agent have gone out on submission, your book is out there, the next step is usually to start working on a new project. Some people can't work on new projects during submission. They don't have the capacity to write during that time, and so they'll wait until after to start writing. And so those are things to make clear with your agent. And so that comes together in something I suggest that you do at this stage, which is to organize a career call with your agent. So this is a call to talk about your long-term career as an author, your plans, and also contingency plans for if things don't go well on sub. So if you don't sell, for example, then what can you do after? And that's a time where you can express, I'm not the sort of author that can write during submission, or I am the sort of author that can, and these are kind of the projects I want to work on. So I think this is a great call to have because it creates this like fully open communication where you and your agent can talk long-term about your career together, because your agent isn't there for one book. They should be there for your career. And so this is a time for you to talk about the future. I think it's a great time to talk about projects you want to work on and which ones you want to work on next, so that they can also give you advice, for example, on, yeah, I think this will work really well with the market, or what about doing this idea first and then this idea later on, that sort of thing. And it's also a time when you can express your goals. So if, for example, you want to be optioned for TV and film, should your book sell, to talk about things like that, to discuss like, well, I would like to sell a book every year, and how feasible is that? And what do you think of that goal? It's really a time for you to very openly discuss your entire career with your agent. Sometimes your agent will just reach out naturally to do this with you. If they don't, I think it's really important for you to reach out and get that for yourself and really chat about your entire career spectrum. For me, this was really helpful because it also gave me a kind of roadmap to think about how I'm going forward, because sub can be very nerve-wracking, and that really helped pull in my focus so that I was like, okay, I'm doing this and this and this next. And that was really helpful. And yes, as I talked before, contingency plans. So what will we do if the book doesn't sell, and what are we going to do next from there is also really important. I think that was really nice for me too, because it gave me something else. Like I felt like there was something else coming forward. It didn't feel like everything was going to end if I didn't sell this book. I think some people have fears that if they don't sell a book, their agent will like suddenly drop them. And so making these plans can also help you feel better, feel like that's not going to happen. It can also give you an idea of what sort of genres of like a feel of your agent for the genres that you're going to write in. And then also, I will say about this, it makes it less stressful for you to present new projects to your agent in the future, because you've already discussed it with them. You've already discussed, okay, I'm going to be writing in XXX genre. And so they're not going to be like shocked when you suddenly pull something out. And that's really important. And then just kind of having that ongoing communication about new projects, and also being transparent if something stops working for you. So if you had your career talk and you said, I'm going to work on this young adult horror next, and you started writing it and you were like, actually, I'm terrible at this, I hate it. Be transparent and communicate with your agent and be like, this actually isn't working for me and I need to move on from it. I've done that before. I'm with my middle grade when I realized I wasn't very good at writing middle grade, and I was like, I'd actually like to shelve this. I'd sent my agent a sci-fi, and then I decided to put the sci-fi on hold because I wanted to work on my horror instead, and just kind of being upfront with your agent about those sorts of things. Step 4 is ongoing communication. So you may still be on submission, you may have sold a book during this time, you may be working on other projects in between all of that, and this is really your ongoing communication with your agent. Something I will say is don't be afraid to ask your agent any question. For me, because I'm extra, I'll usually like ask my friends a question to see if they know the answer, and then if they don't, I'll email my agent, just because I don't know, I'm like that. I could just email her right off the bat, but sometimes I just want to ask my friends and get their answer instead. And that sort of thing. But if you have any questions, your agent is there to answer them. So don't be afraid to send them a question directly, and also be very clear about the communication style that works for you. So if, for example, it's important to you to have some sort of like monthly check-in with your agent or like bi-weekly check-in with your agent, be sure to communicate with that with them and ask them about that. I have friends who they have like weekly check-ins with their agent and that works for them. For me, I don't need to check in with my agent unless something is going on. So I don't really want to have a weekly or monthly check-in. I just want to check in with her on the fly if I have something important to discuss with her. And that really matters to you. So making clear the communication style that works for you on an ongoing basis. And on that note, don't let your agent ghost you. If you send your agent an email and they don't answer for several days or weeks, email them again and try and get in contact with them again. Don't just let them ghost you. But in that case, you kind of start to get into a relationship where it's like, well, why are they taking so long to get back to me? And in that case, it's really important for you to communicate that to them, to be like, hey, so I noticed when I send you an email, you don't get back to me for several weeks. It's really important to me to kind of hear back from you within the week if possible. Is there a way we can make that work? And if that doesn't work out, then it's time to assess your relationship. And that's something that's really important and totally fine and normal. You are allowed to assess your relationship with your agent on an ongoing basis. Because this is the thing, not everyone stays with their first agent. Sometimes people will switch agents. That's for all different reasons. Sometimes it's because the agent is bad. Sometimes it's the communication style doesn't work. And sometimes it's just that people end up in a different point in their career. So for example, maybe they were writing contemporaries and now they kind of want to write fantasy, but the agent they're with really only represents contemporary, so then they'll switch. Or sometimes their agent isn't helping them reach those goals that they wanted. So they set out some goals and their agent really isn't helping them get to those goals and they'd like to move on to a different agent that's maybe better able to do that. So people switch agents for all sorts of reasons, but if you are not feeling good about your agent, you are allowed to switch and you are allowed to change. If you are on submission, this will usually mean you get pulled from submission, and then you can have your book back to yourself and you can find a new agent and go on submission with them. But I think it's important that the moment that you are having those feelings to really assess whether that's the time to leave your agent. Because the thing is, when you sell a book, the agent that you've sold the book with is your agent for that book forevs, basically. So if you sell the book with them, they will always be your agent for that book. They will always be the touch point. They will still get their cut of money from that book. And so in some cases, if you're having not great feelings early on, I would say it is better to move on before you sell than it is to kind of wait and languish in it and then have that go on after you sell, because that relationship then doesn't just end for you. You're always still going to have one foot in that relationship. So yes, ongoing communication, it's fine to reassess. And it's also really good to just, again, stay on the same page with your agent. And so that's it for this video on navigating the author-agent relationship. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to me already, please subscribe. I post once a week on Tuesdays about all things traditional publishing and like my experiences, etc. If you have any questions about the author-agent relationship, please feel free to comment below with them and I will answer to the best of my ability. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!